Hello everyone, this is Insta here. Welcome back to A Legend's Tale Season 1. We are on episode 6, which means that we have 2 episodes more to go of my first season. This episode is called The Beast Slayer. It's the shortest one, I believe, of the entire season. It's only 51 minutes. Again, a completely new storyline that's introduced, a completely new characters. So I suggest let's just jump straight into this. I hope you enjoy. A sunny day it was in the ancient. It wasn't as gloomy or dark as it often was. Through the woods, birds could be heard singing. It was all filled with life. The villages of the old settlements were all doing well, at least the most of them. People would pass every day, people of all over the continent. The villagers of the old settlements have seen nearly every type of people there is to see. The royal knights of Queen Anthea, farmers en route to their lands, families en route to the capital in pursuit for a better life. Even some claim to have seen wizards flying over the towns every now and then. In one of the villages, a hooded man on a tall black horse arrives one day. He enters the village in silence, as a lot of people look at him. Some stare in curiosity, while others are scared away from his intimidating appearance. His black horse takes him slowly towards the village center, to the square. He arrives there as dozens and dozens of villagers make way for him, most of them out of fright. The man steps off his horse and slowly walks towards the town's bar, without even looking at the others. He goes through the door of the bar, causing the same effect on the people inside it. Everyone stares at him. A giant beast of a man, standing over 2 meters tall, greatly muscled, but somehow hidden away because of the black cloak he's wearing. Not to mention that he carries a huge double-edged sword on his back. Knights wear their swords on their sides. Huntsmen wear them on both of their sides since they normally carry 2 smaller swords. Only one type of people wear swords on their backs. Bounty hunters. The bounty hunter steps to the bar. The barman automatically pours a drink for him, knowing that all bounty hunters normally ask after the strongest beverage they have. The bounty hunter takes the glass and drinks it empty in one go. He just stands still at the bar, as several people go outside of fear. One boy runs out of the bar, over the village square, towards the hotel on the other end. The hotel looks like a regular village inn, but still cozy and luxurious, at least for the standards in these areas. He enters the hotel and goes to a man sitting on a couch, reading a book. This man has a severely scarred face, an appearance that would send every child to bed with nightmares. The boy goes to the man and tells him that he's here. The scarred man stands up, and upon learning that the visitor is in the bar, he calls for his other men. In the bar itself, everyone is left. Only the bounty hunter and the barman are still left. The barman himself has trouble speaking, as the bounty hunter still stands at the bar in silence. After a while, some noise can be heard coming from the square. The barman almost warns the bounty hunter to leave. He doesn't want any trouble in this place. He urges that this village is a quiet place. There are no bad people here. They just want to live their lives in peace. They don't want anyone to disturb that peace for foolish reasons. The bounty hunter then turns to the barman, telling him that he knows, and that's why he's here. The scarred man enters the bar with 10 other men. He orders the bounty hunter to step away and to not come back. He claims that they have a good thing going on in this town and that they don't need to be disturbed. The bounty hunter stands with his back towards the men and doesn't say a word. He figures offering them his backside gives them all what's coming to them. The scarred man then takes out a knife, telling the bounty hunter that they like the people here. They have showed them their love multiple times. Surely a bunch of lovable men don't need punishment? The bounty hunter now turns around, slowly, and tells them that he has heard of the love that they give to the inhabitants of this town, and what kind of love it is, preferably to the ones who haven't crossed the age of 18. He heard that they took some of those girls and boys to a private place for further use. The scarred man starts to laugh as he's waving his knife around. The other 10 men start to move around the bar, trying to surround the bounty hunter. The bounty hunter now also brings up that there have been some reports of multiple missing persons around these parts. The scarred man now stops laughing and draws a very serious face. He points his knife at the hunter, warning him to not wrongly accuse others. The hunter slowly takes off his hood, revealing his face, also scarred and having an eye patch over his left eye, no more than 40 years old. The hunter drinks another glass of liquor and says that at least he got his accusations half correct. At that moment, all the 10 men attack the hunter. The hunter evades a swinging knife, slams his glass on the bar, and uses its severed edges to slash one's throat. The man falls on the ground as blood spills everywhere. Another knife is thrown at the hunter, which he evades. He then stabs the glass in the face of another man and immediately picks up a chair and smashes it in another man's head, causing it to split open. The other 7 men keep waving their knives at the hunter as the scarred man observes in the bar's door. The hunter evades and dodges the attacks of the other attackers. He grabs a fork that lies on one of the tables and uses it to cut an attacker's eye out. He keeps on using the fork to slice another's throat open, and another one, and another one. The remaining 3 attackers think of running away, but the scarred man orders them to keep on attacking the bounty hunter. The 3 attackers stand both shivering on their legs. The bounty hunter throws away his fork, takes a breath, and then draws his longsword from his back. Upon the sight of this, the 3 attackers run towards the door. The scarred man forbids them to leave and stands in their way. However, the 3 men push him aside and run away as fast as they can. The scarred man yells and curses. The bounty hunter slowly steps towards him with the longsword in his hand. The scarred man stumbles backwards outside of the bar. Dozens of villagers watch as the scarred man starts to threaten the hunter a final time, yelling him that they should have stayed away. The hunter keeps on walking towards them, not giving a blink. The scarred man starts to wave his knife at the hunter, but the hunter quickly slams the knife of his hand and then swings his sword powerfully underneath the scarred man's legs, slashing his private parts clean off. The scarred man falls on the ground and screams for the whole village to hear. The hunter takes the man by the head and forces him to tell him where they have hidden the underage boys and girls. Not long after, they both arrive at a shack not too far from the village. The bounty hunter with his longsword on his back and the scarred man still in pain and bleeding heavily. The hunter throws the man on the ground and goes to the locked entrance of the shack. He cuts it open with his longsword, opens it and finds 3 boys and 8 girls inside it, all tied up and in bad conditions with torn clothes. They seem scared at first, but the hunter tries to calm them down despite his scary appearance. The hunter then frees all the boys and the girls, assuring them that they are safe now and that they are going home. Not long after, the bounty hunter arrives back at the town with the boys and girls. Several men and women come running towards them and embrace them, reuniting with their stolen sons and daughters. The bounty hunter remains silent and goes to the town hall. Here he is met by one of the council members of the village. He tells them that they will find 7 dead men in the local bar and 1 slightly wounded gang leader outside of his horse. 3 members escaped in the woods. The council member is very pleased and thanks the hunter greatly for his service. He rewards him with the bounty of 500 coin. The hunter collects it. The member asks him after his name. Surely they must know the name of the man who saved their sons and daughters. The hunter tells him that his name is Maximus, and then he heads for the door. Before leaving, the council member also informs him that they have no prisons here, thus no place for a scarred man to stay. Maximus smiles and assures the council member not to worry about that. Maximus goes outside and sees how dozens and dozens of people are still rejoicing over the reunion with their sons and daughters. Maximus steps on his horse with a wounded, scarred man behind him, still in terrible pain. Maximus goes on his horse towards the people, who all thank him dearly. They also give death stares to the scarred man, who looks at them in horror. Maximus looks at the scarred man and then kicks him off his horse. The scarred man falls on the ground in front of the people. Maximus simply tells them that he's all for them, and then rides off into the woods in silence. The villagers all surround the scarred man as he lies on the ground, begging for his life. Maximus rides through the woods on his horse. He talks to him, saying that he did a fine job again, as usual. The 500 coin will certainly come in handy for the next couple of months. But you know what they say, the life of a bounty hunter is without vacation. He takes a drink from his flask, probably also something strong. He rides in peace through the songs of birds and the songs of the wind. A small pond next to a giant tree somewhere deep in the forest. The pond has pitch black water with several red leaves floating on it from the tree. Beside it sits Mekki, a young boy of around 16 years old. His clothes aren't the most fancy. In fact, he looks like another poor country boy, guarding several bags and another horse. He sits there playing the flute. He hears something approaching from the distance. After further listening, the sounds are coming closer. He puts away the flute and draws a bow and arrow, aiming it at the sounds. Out of the bushes appears Maximus on his tall black horse. Maggie is relieved and puts away the bow and arrow. He asks about how the job went, to which Maximus answers positively. He shows Maggie the bag in which the 500 coin are, making him very happy. He almost gets ecstatic, saying that they'll get some good food in the next town, maybe finally get a proper place to stay. Maximus calms him down, however, saying that they never can stay at the same place for too long, otherwise he will be forced to retire, and he's not planning on doing that. Maximus takes a long look at Maggie and says that they'll get some new clothes first. They pack their things and prepare to move forth towards the next village. These two clearly know each other for a while, an odd couple to be sure. Maggie is only 16 years old, but already quite tall, a bit more skinny than usual, but he's training well enough, so he can become like Maximus. Maximus himself doesn't quite know what to think of that, but it also could be the age gap between them. They ride across plains, through forests. No matter where they go, they always try to keep the mountains in the distance. Those mountains make the natural border of law, according to Maximus. On the other side stands Queen Anthea with a royal army, defending the country. This isn't official, but it's one of the many made-up rules Maximus has. Rules to which Maggie also has to keep himself. Not always as easy, but still, Maximus is like the overprotective father here. A muscular, overprotective father standing over 2 meters tall with a huge longsword on his back. There's no arguing with him. Yet, Maggie has grown used to this. For all the silence Maximus brings with him, Maggie feels it plenty. His progression with bow and arrow, his progression with playing the flute, his horse riding skills, his changing body features thanks to puberty, etc. Maggie will talk about those things one way or another, whether Maximus would like it or not. Yet they have grown like symbiotes, pretty much inseparable, and with this, they ride, together, through the ancients. Meanwhile, the three escaped attackers are still on the loose. They ride on horseback through the woods to a camp near the mountains, a small camp with a fire going in the middle. Around 50 men and women guard the place. The three men arrive at the camp claiming that they immediately need to see the boss. At that moment, out of the only tent that has been set up around the fire, comes their boss. A tall man, just under 2 meters, with severe scars and a missing hand. He stands tall in comparison with the others. He looks down upon the three men, almost in disappointment. The look on his face almost seems like he already knows what has happened. The three men still tell their story. They are the only survivors, they had to retreat from the village. The boss remains calm and looks to his other men and women, all looking at him for a response. The three men are shivering on their legs, as if they are waiting for news that could mean life or death. And in a way, they are. The boss asks calmly who it was. Who was it who came and disrupted the peace that they had settled in the village? The men don't hesitate. A tall man of over 2 meters, covered in black with a huge longsword on his back, an eye patch over his left eye, and some scars on his face. The boss takes another deep breath. It's quiet for a while. The boss turns to the fire and simply mentions out loud, the Beast Slayer. Several men and women start to whisper to each other. That name means something. Bounty hunters aren't that common. There are only around 10 over the entire continent, maybe even less. Bounty hunters need a large territory to operate, but the man who they call the Beast Slayer, some claim that he requires the whole continent. Wherever he goes on his black stallion, death soon follows. Death to those who have wronged the innocents. The boss turns around and mentions that the three men couldn't have done anything to prevent what has happened. The three men take a deep breath of relief. Yet, if they would have stood their ground along with the others, surely they would have been dead. And the boss doesn't tolerate those who are weak. So, since these three men claim to be the only ones here, they are either lying and killed the others themselves, or they ran away. Either way, that's something the boss can't forgive. The three men start to beg for mercy and swear that they're telling the truth, that they only just got away with their lives. The boss laughs as he takes out a big carved sword with a side as if it is a saw. As the three men beg, the boss tells them that no one simply outruns the man that they call the Beast Slayer. With 3 powerful swings of his sword, he slashes the 3 men's heads clean off. Weakness has no place here. He orders everyone to saddle up. They shall pay a visit to a familiar place. That night, Maximus and Maggie ride through the woods as rain pours down on them. Not being able to find a decent place to stay, they don't carry enough with them to even build a small tent or something of the likes of it. As usual, Maggie complains and urges that they need to find something that resembles shelter. Maximus thinks and scouts the area, trying to navigate where they are. Yet in a land as vast as the one they are in, everything starts to look the same after a while. When they reach a small hilltop, however, they notice a glimpse of light in the distance. Maggie is quickly to inform Maximus and points out where the light comes from. The darkness of the night combined with the heavy rain calls for minimum visibility. Maximus tries to figure out what it is in the distance, but so far it's only a glimpse of light. But light means fire, so it's the best option they have. They ride towards the light as they pass through a small valley between the trees, trying to keep the light right in front of them. As they get closer, out of the darkness appeared several high towers, bell towers it seems. 3 high bell towers with several smaller buildings between them, all surrounded by a semi-big wall made of strong stones, only accessible by a huge gate in the middle. Above the gate shines a great fire. Maximus and Maggie arrive in front of the gate. Maggie has no idea where they are, yet Maximus knows all too well. It's the monastery. Home to the priests, people who have given up their lives to serve for the greater good. Good fighters too, as the stories go, but these are the only myths, since the priests never leave the monastery. It's their oasis, their home. Maximus dismounts his horse and knocks on the gate powerfully. After some knocking, the gate finally opens as a group of priests stands behind it. They open the gates and ask who they may serve. Maximus introduces him and Maggie, asking for shelter of the storm. The priests take them in without a second thought. The horses are put in the stables along with the equipment. Maximus and Maggie are taken inside. The inside of the building almost feels like a castle, peacefully quiet with candles almost everywhere. Maximus walks through the hallways, looking even more like a giant than usual, with Maggie by his side. They are brought to a small room with a small hearth. They are offered blankets by an elderly priest, with another more younger priest by his side. Maximus asks for something to drink and to eat. The elderly priest orders the younger priests to carry out the wishes of their guests. Maggie takes the blanket and sits right in front of the hearth to get some warmth. The elderly priest expresses his hospitality by saying that they were lucky that they found the monastery. It was thanks to the huge fire on top of the gate, meant to be as a guiding point for every weary traveler who may pass the area in need of shelter. Maximus thanks the elderly priests as the younger priest returns with some bread, bacon, 2 cups and a large jar presumably filled with water. Maggie immediately takes a cup, fills it, takes a large sip of it and then almost immediately spits it back out. Maximus laughs as the younger priest looks at Maggie confused. Maggie is equally confused. It appears to be something far more stronger than water that is in this jug. The elderly priest laughs and mentions that serving strong drinks has been a custom among the likes of them. The elderly priest orders the younger priest to fetch some water. Maximus pours himself a cup of the strong drink and tells Maggie that if he would spend his entire life inside the same stone walls day in, day out, he would do the same thing. The younger priest comes with some water for Maggie, but gets some harsh comments on his working pace from the elderly priest. The elderly priest does wish Maximus and Maggie a good stay. They may walk through the garden and the same hallways through which they came in. Maximus and Maggie remain alone in their chambers. Maximus suggests Maggie to get some sleep. They will continue their journey first thing in the morning. Some time later, Maximus is still awake in a chamber as Maggie lies sleeping in front of the hearth. The storm has passed, and Maximus stares out of the chamber's window into a quiet and peaceful-looking valley. The moon shines bright, giving an almost magical feeling. He looks at Maggie with an urge of responsibility in his eyes. That boy means something to him. In the garden, the younger priest walks around and checks the stables as he's been ordered to do so. He looks after the two horses of Mekki and Maximus, giving them water and hay. Then he notices the equipment lying in the corner, including Maximus' longsword. He takes a long look at the huge thing. He has never seen a weapon like this. It almost looks supernatural in his eyes. He takes a step closer and almost feels like touching it. Then a familiar voice warns him not to cut himself. The priest turns around and sees Maximus standing behind him. The priest feels guilty and stands there like a child who has just been caught misbehaving. Maximus smiles and assures him that it's all right. The priest says that he just has never seen something like that. He asks if there are more of them out there in the world. Maximus takes the sword and says that there are countless ones. He takes it out of its sheath and presents it before the priest, who looks at it in awe. The priest then takes out two knives from under his cloths. The knives sure do look fancy, as they are covered with some shining diamonds. He tells Maximus that those two knives are the things they train him for, every day, for as long as he can remember. Maximus asks the priest's name. The priest hesitates. He's pretty shy, as it seems. He tells Maximus that he's called Frederick. He does confront Frederick with the fact that why such a young man as himself, no younger than 25 or so, would choose for a life like this, especially as he seems so curious about a simple thing as a sword. Frederick, still shy, tells Maximus that the only thing he ever wanted was to protect people. It's what he has been trained to do. There is a short silence. Maximus eventually asks Frederick if that's what he himself truly wants. Frederick doesn't know how to answer for a second, and at the moment he wants to speak, he's interrupted by another elderly priest who orders Frederick to not disturb their guests and get back to work. Maximus stands up for Frederick, assuring that it's all right. The priest counters by saying that Frederick is still an apprentice and needs to obey and listen, nothing more. Frederick goes back inside before Maximus can say another thing. He goes to his room again and walks through the hallways. Suddenly, some bright flashes shine through the windows. Some flashes of light come from the outside. Curious, Maximus looks out one of the windows. The flashes of light come from far away in the distance, from behind the mountains even. Lightning strikes numerous amounts of time, as thunder also rages, but only over one specific place, not like a thunderstorm would usually do. Maximus stares at it in wonder. Frederick stands a couple of meters away in the hallway, also looking at the storm out of a window. He tells Maximus that a storm like this has been going on for the past week, always at the same place in the distance, like a lightning storm that never moves. Maximus asks him what it is, but Frederick mentions that he doesn't know, and the priests won't tell him either. Before Maximus can ask anything, Frederick disappears again, afraid of encountering another angry priest. Maximus keeps on staring out the window in the distance for a while, almost in trance of the lightning storm. The next morning, Maximus and Mekki grab their equipment and prepare to venture out again. Maximus thanks one of the priests for their hospitality. Mekki jumps on his horse and expresses much enthusiasm for continuing their journey. Maximus hushes Mekki as he also gets on his horse. He gives the priests a bit of money he had received for his last bounty. The gates are opened and Maximus and Mekki once again depart. Out of a window in the castle, Frederick watches how the duo disappears into the wild, envious of their ability to get out of the monastery just like that. Something that he will never be able to do himself. Priests are bound by law and belief, sworn to protect this holy place from all threats, but only here, only between these walls. That's something Frederick can't accept, although, being the priest's apprentice, he is. In the village, all is going well as the villagers are still rejoicing over the return of their children. In the town hall, the council members are going over the state of things. Suddenly, another caved man comes walking in. Not too tall, around 1 meter and 80 centimeters, also muscular and dressed in black. Only this one's cloak is dark blue. He immediately takes off his hood, revealing a slightly scarred face of a man around 30 years old. Apart from that, he also carries a great longsword on his back. Another bounty hunter. The council members ask what they can do for him. The bounty hunter asks calmly about the bounty that they had made public some time ago. He's here to help them and collect it. The council members inform him that the bounty has already been collected. The issue has been resolved. If the hunter would step outside and go to the graveyard, he would see all the proof. The hunter is surprised since he rode here in all haste. He remains calm and mentions how he will be on his way then, yet again. He does ask about who came to collect the bounty. He is informed that it was another bounty hunter just like himself, only far taller, with a black cloak, an eye patch over his left eye. The hunter doesn't look surprised, only annoyed. He knows who the council member is referring to. He thanks them and goes on his way. Finally, he does quickly ask them which way they saw the bounty hunter leave, to which the members reply that he departed east. The bounty hunter thanks them again and leaves. He goes outside, still obviously annoyed about the situation. He climbs on his horse and rides east into the forest. The members in the town hall go back to their business. Suddenly, noises can be heard from outside. The shouting and screaming of men and women alike suddenly fills the whole town hall. The council members quickly make way for the door and arrive outside, only to see 50 armed men and women on horseback in the village square. Frightened, the council members see the boss of the gang on his horse with his carved sword. He steps on his horse and slowly walks over to the council members in front of the town hall. The council members ask him what he wants, calling him by the name of Blagden. He again remains very calm and asks about what happened, where the other 8 men are who he left to guard the town. One member, the same one who gave Maximus his bounty, tells the truth. A bounty hunter came and killed all of them. Only 3 men got away. Blagden asks what the bounty hunter looked like, to which he also gets the truth as a reply. Blagden walks around for a bit, thinking. He starts to give a monologue to everyone present at the village square. They are all in the middle of a very problematic situation. They came here to this village and made a very simple deal. They would provide for enough food and supplies as long as they could stay in the village in any way they deemed sufficient. And everything was going perfectly fine. Then the council members publicized a bounty on their heads. A bounty hunter came, and not just anyone, but the Beast Slayer himself. He came and took the role of a disease on him very quickly, and now they can very easily just settle themselves back in the village and just go on like they did before without taking any further measures. But then the disease would come back, as it always does. So this time, they will tackle the disease itself. They will do the thing everyone does with diseases. Rip it out, root and stem. Yet, how do you lure a disease to the killing block? Well, it's very simple. You act vulnerable, like a little lamb, waiting for the knife. At that moment, he brutally cuts the council member's head off with one clean stroke, as all the villagers scream in horror. The 50 gang members all keep the villagers in check. Blagden turns around and orders everyone to be silent. He chooses a little girl, no older than 11, that's standing next to her mother. A gang member grabs the girl and holds her tight, as the mother screams and begs them not to hurt her. Blagden walks over to the little girl and asks her if she remembers the tall man who came and killed all his friends not too long ago, and in which direction he went afterwards. The girl nods as she's shaking on her legs. Blagden smiles and tells her that that's good. Now he wants her to go and get him for him. The mother asks why the girl has to do that. She has no reason to go alone into the woods, out looking for a man she doesn't even know. Blagden then turns around and tells the mother that he will give her a reason. And in the blink of an eye, he stabs the mother in the stomach with his sword. The little girl stands shocked and frozen. The other villagers are screaming as the mother collapses dead in front of her. Blagden then takes the little girl by the arm and tells her that some of his friends prefer her mother more like this for some very special activities. He then tells her calmly to go and get the tall man. She stands frozen on her legs with tears in her eyes, still looking at her dead mother. Blagden starts to get angry and then yells at her to run. The girl then runs away to the farm where she climbs on a horse as quickly as she can. Blagden and his gang members all scream and yell at the girl as she disappears into the forest. Blagden then turns around, looks at his gang members, then at the villagers. And now the beast will come to the butcher.